News Channel 8 is your local election headquarters. The race for the White House in 2020 is heating up. More than a dozen Democrats have already announced they're running for the presidency, and one big potential candidate is considering running as an independent. Howard Schultz, former CEO of Starbucks, joins me now in studio. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. Great to be here.
Thanks for coming in. You are considering this run for the White House. Not official yet, right?
Yes, that's true.
When will you make that determination, and what's going to be the motivating factor that helps you decide?
Well, I've said publicly that I'm seriously considering running for president as a centrist independent outside of the two-party system, because the two-party system is broken. It's clear, and I'll make a decision probably by late spring, early summer, as I've traveled the country. I've been in many states. I was in Texas all week, Florida this week, next week Colorado. The crowds are getting larger. People are enthused about what I'm saying. And what I'm talking about is the heart of America, which is the vast majority of Americans are completely dissatisfied with the ideology on both sides, and it's not representative of what the American people want and deserve.
I think that's totally accurate. And as someone who works in politics, I think we need more than just the two parties. They're not serving the American public. But this has been tried before, right? Isn't this a change that has to come from inside? Maybe somebody gets into power, then changes the rules to allow for more of this. It's just going to be so hard from outside.
I don't think so. I mean, in all due respect. I think certainly in my lifetime, I think you probably agree with this, I've never seen the country more divided. I've never seen politics more divisive, more corrosive, and in many ways corrupt. The ideology on the Republican side, this new ideology of socialism on the Democratic side, a president that lacks morality and character and dignity in the Oval Office. The country is longing for truth and authenticity and leadership. And we need leadership at home to solve problems, real problems, the immigration problem, gun legislation, all of which the American people, almost 80%, have been asking for, and we can't get it. And of course, our standing in the world. And so when I look at the fact that we got $22 trillion of national debt, all of these things greatly concern me. And as someone who has built a successful company in which I've given free college tuition, ownership, health care to all of our employees, and demonstrated that you can build a successful company, do right for your employees, I think we can do the same thing in America by embracing humanity and fixing our fiscal issues and the social issues that are facing the country.
You mentioned our standing abroad this week, a horrific attack in New Zealand on two mosques. The man police believe responsible for the attack specifically mentioned Donald Trump as being an emblem of what he was doing. Your thoughts about that?
Well, I didn't see what the man said, but first of all, my heart goes out for everyone in New Zealand, for Muslims around the world. We certainly have seen our own situations so close to you here in Parkland, in Pittsburgh. Listen, we have a level of incitement and hate and fear, and all I would say is that the President of the United States sets the tone for the character of our nation. And in my view, and I'm not linking what happened in New Zealand to this president, but in my view, the character, morality, the lack of dignity, and the honor needs to be restored in the White House. And if I run for president, that's exactly what I would do.
This week, you said that you had spent more time in the military than any other presidential candidate. You have apologized for that. Several Democrats are veterans. President Trump famously avoided Vietnam with a half a dozen deferments for bone spurs. Is he a draft dodger?
Well, he'll have to answer that question for himself. What I said this week was the following. While I was in Texas this week, I toured the Intrepid Hospital and I walked through the burn unit. My company has hired 20,000 veterans and spouses over the last 5 to 6 years. My family foundation has built 18 transitional centers for post 9/11 veterans transitioning out of the military. And I've spent a lot of time with military personnel. What really concerns me is the fact that the VA, which has a shocking budget of $200 billion, is not serving the interest of the men and women who have served. And I think the Commander-in-Chief not only has the moral obligation and the solemn responsibility to send our people, extraordinary young women, men and women into harm's way, but also we've got to take care of them when they come home. And so it was in that level of conversation that I was talking about. And of course, the people who have served, who are running for president, deserve all the respect in the world.
Yesterday, the House voted, the House voted this week to make sure that the Mueller report becomes public when it is released.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
I think it should be public. And also, I think as we sit today, we're heading what could be a constitutional crisis. As we sit right now between the president and his own party with regard to the invention of a false narrative about a national emergency at the border. I mean, how much evidence do we need that this dysfunction, polarization is not working for the American people, and we need a significant change? And for anyone to tell me that an independent person should not run for president or it's not possible, it's un-American. This is an expression of our democracy.
Well, I certainly wasn't telling you that you should.
No, I should. No, I know.
I was just saying it would be very difficult,
Yeah.
and maybe those changes are better from the inside. But
Yeah.
certainly, I think anyone who throws their hat into the ring should be honored. I mean, that's a very difficult decision for you to make, and certainly, you're a very successful businessman. You could easily be yachting in the Riviera, I'm sure. So this is obviously you putting yourself on the line.
I get seasick, actually.
Want to talk to you about a couple other things a
Yeah.
little bit closer to home here.
Yeah.
A lot of Puerto Ricans living in Florida. It seems as though their desire is to become the 51st state. Should they be allowed to?
I don't know if they should become the 51st state, but I think the way this president dealt with the hurricane and the tragedy in Puerto Rico, and leaving all of those people without electricity for so long, I think was a terrible example of the humanity of the country. Terrible lack of leadership.
I'm going to push you on that, though. If they voted to become a member of the United States, do you think that they should become the 51st state?
I certainly would consider that positively.
Okay. You mentioned the declaration at the border, President Trump declaring a national emergency, voted against by his own party. But there is a problem with immigration right now. Do you see an emergency at the border? What would you do about it?
I've been to the border. I've been to McAllen, Texas. I've studied it. Now, let's take a step back and remember, once again, vast majority of Americans have been asking for and longing for a common sense solution on immigration. So if the American people are asking for that, why can't we get it? And we can't get it because both parties are using this as a political weapon, and this president has incited so much fear and hate and invented things that are not true. Do we have bad people who are trying to and are coming across the border illegally? The answer is yes. Do we have the technology, or the best technology and innovation in the world in the United States that can provide the level of security that we need at the border? We do not need barriers. Does ICE have a role to play, and should we fund ICE to have the responsibility to protect the border? Yes. But in my view, when you get to the Dreamers, the humane thing to do, the American thing to do, is to give the Dreamers a pathway to citizenship. The 11 million people here who are supposedly here unauthorized, the majority of them came because their visa expired, not because they crossed the border. Mm-hmm. So let them pay a tax, back taxes, and let's do what's right for them. But the bigger issue is we need legal immigration in this country for a whole host of reasons, not the least of which is economic growth. We are a country of immigrants. Let's remember that. We do not build walls in this country. We build bridges for people to come in. And I think this is a great opportunity to once again recognize what the American people are asking for and for the parties to come together. But they're not going to come together unless somebody creates and transforms a dysfunctional system, and that's what I want to do.
You're a business guy. There are a lot of people who think that problem exists because lots of businesses like the low-wage labor that illegal immigrants provide.
I don't agree with that. And in fact, if you talk to people who are farming and in the agricultural business, they can't find labor right now on any level because those Americans don't want to do those jobs. 10,000 people a day are turning 65. We're going to need to take care of those people. Who's going to do those jobs? But there's a long, I went to Vicky's Bakery in Miami, Florida yesterday and did a whole town hall with Cuban Americans, proud Cuban Americans who have come to this country and are living the American dream. These are wonderful people. Let's open our borders for legal immigration, and let's do the right thing that is part of the heritage of our country.
This week, Gavin Newsom, governor of California, suspended the death penalty in the state. Governor Ron DeSantis here in Florida said this week that he is in favor of it for certain crimes, for certain people. Where do you sit on the issue?
I have not made a decision on that issue. I know Gavin Newsom well. I think that's a state issue, and at some point in the future, I'll come up with a decision about that.
Okay. I want to commend you. Starbucks offers great parental paid leave benefits. That is an issue that I think is very important and crucial to the economic success of this country. I've lived in a number of other countries, and I've seen how well the system can work when you're supporting parents who have young children. Separately from that, I also have a very young child, a 4-month-old son.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks very much. 6 to 12 weeks paid leave with an additional 12 weeks possible unpaid, even to part-time employees.
Yes.
That is a spectacular policy. Why is that important to you? And do we need legislation on a national level to force more businesses to offer even just some paid leave?
It's important to me because what I learned at almost 40 years at Starbucks is not every business decision is an economic one, and that success is best when it's shared. Our stock price at Starbucks is up almost 25,000% since we went public in '92, while giving the benefits we talked about, and equal pay in terms of gender, and what you just said about parental leave. I think the government should mandate this. I'm not in favor of government mandating too many things on the backs of business. But again, I think the government has a role to play in demonstrating that businesses need to do more for their people in the communities they serve. And this is a major issue, a major opportunity, and also speaks to the inequality in America, where parents who are having children don't have the flexibility to take care of them.
Last year, Starbucks was criticized for an employee calling the police on 2 people who were in the restaurant who were not ordering anything. You were executive chairman at the time, not CEO. I know that issue is kind of come and gone, but I'm wondering how that issue informed your views of race in America and how you would use it in the future if you were to become president.
Well, I think it troubles me greatly that we've got a level of bigotry and prejudice in this country. It has no place in America. We have racial injustice in the country. In many ways, I think we've taken a step back from where we were. The problem that happened at Starbucks gave us a great opportunity to learn and understand that many people in America have a level of unconscious bias that sometimes they don't recognize. And I think we had an opportunity in our company to train almost 200,000 people in terms of bias training. But I think we are a society that needs to be open and honest. We should be having, at times, uncomfortable conversations so that we can get better. But if I run for president and I'm fortunate enough to be elected, what I would say is this. Regardless of the color of your skin, your ethnic background, your gender, your sexual orientation, or your station in life, you should be able to pursue your individual happiness, and that the American promise, American dream should be available to you.
You have said that you should be paying more in taxes as a man of your means, but you criticized Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's 70% marginal tax rate on every dollar of income above $10 million as too high. Why? What's the right level if that's not it?
Well, I think these kinds of questions need a very thoughtful, disciplined discussion with people around the table who are not in agreement, but let's come in, leave ideology out of the room, and let's have a good conversation. Let's not issue a press release or send out a tweet just for the purpose of having relevance and just for the purpose of being an iconic new celebrity in America. The Green New Deal is an example. I read that word for word. When I read the fact that every building in America by 2030 is going to have clean energy, I asked 2 questions. First, does the government have the right to transform every building in America? Who's going to do that? And if you do the math, it's 2,700 buildings a day. And so let's be realistic about what we're saying. Let's be responsible. And let's not just throw things against the wall and hope they stick. Because what the country needs right now is honesty and truthfulness and policies that are consistent with the American people want. Should the wealthy be paying higher taxes? Yes, they should. Should Donald Trump have given a 21% tax rate to corporations? I don't think so. It should have been higher with incentives built in to provide companies with the incentive to educate their people, training, give more for their communities. But no, This is not a time for a level of socialism in America. That is not who we are. The heart of America, the base majority of Americans do not want the country to go from one extreme to the other.
Do you feel like that's socialism? I mean, back in the 50s and 60s under Eisenhower, we had tax rates as high as 90%.
You know, that's a true story. That's a fact. But when you go back in history and look at how many people are actually paying those taxes and doing things to get around them, there's another story.
Well, getting rich people and corporations to pay taxes is a different story.
Well, you should talk to the president about that.
Okay, you're off the hot seat. A couple of softballs for you. What's your Starbucks order?
I just had a double short, flat white. It was fantastic. But my go-to is a French press of aged Sumatra.
When you order, what do they write on your cup? And what's the deal with the writing on the cups with the wrong names?
Well, sometimes people get the wrong name. Everyone pays
it. Happens a lot.
Wow, it's a lot of people. 100 million people a week go into Starbucks stores, so I'm pretty proud of that. Sometimes we get the names wrong, not on purpose, but some people have fun with it.
It's almost become a kind of a lovable thing about Starbucks, actually, I think.
Well, it's true. What name do you go by?
Edward. Sometimes they get Edward instead of Evan on there.
Okay.
You're a Yankees fan.
I'm a big Yankees fan.
So you come in here, you're coming here you going to catch a game while you're in town?
I don't know if I'm going to have time for that, but I was hoping to run into Aaron Judge. I know I wouldn't miss him in the street.
That's right. Yeah, he's a big guy.
Oh, man, he's fantastic.
Howard Schultz, former CEO of Starbucks, possible presidential candidate. Thanks for coming in to join us.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Really appreciate you having us here.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.